Welcome back to the show, everybody. Take a look at these numbers while we spin the headlines here. We got Ron Hammond-Update from Congress, J.W. Barrett, former SEC advisor. What SEC lawsuit? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Ripple taking over Swift. We're going to talk about the countdown for Ripple is on, but is it for XRP? Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook for exclusive content. 1,020 billion is where we are for the market cap. Shout out to CoinPetrika for the numbers today. Bitcoin, 19,900, just under 20,000 today. Ethereum, 1,500 plus, and we see XRP ringing in right there at 32 cents. Remember, the technical analyst, Dark Defender, told us to watch out for that 31 cent mark. If we stay above that and we climb to 40 plus cents, we're really in bullish territory, ladies and gentlemen. So if we get below 31 cents, we could see that 28 to 22 cent range get touched. Keep your head on a swivel. I want to remind you guys that Masterworks is the first time ever you can participate in buying blue chip art, some of the most incredible fine art in the world. It's been commoditized where you can buy it $20 a share, minimum investment $500. They just added Donald Judd here, and it's already 62% filled, invested for that particular artwork, that piece right there. I want to let you know that, some of the richest people in the world, this is what they do with their money in times of uncertainty. They invest in fine art. And for the first time in the history of the world, we can do it too. You can click the link and find out for yourself underneath the video. Right here, we see Gary Gensler says back to school seasons to all the teachers out there. Start off the school year taking a look at the resources we have. And then we see Library says, hey, Gary, suppose a smart young student wanted to code and launch a public blockchain. Are there any resources out there for them on how to do it legally? I couldn't help myself. Shout out to Library. I said, tell him to look up ETHgate, but the legal part's a bit shaky unless you have regulatory capture. What a shame that is. Ron Hammond says the next 4 weeks in Congress are going to be very busy for crypto policy on Capitol Hill. Multiple high-profile hearings, several comprehensive bills in the works, and the general political push antics ahead of November election. You know what? Great interview by Thinking Crypto there. And I have a quick clip that I want you to check out right here where, Tony asked Ron Hammond about the current state of Congress and are they aware of the sentiment of the retail investor out here in crypto Twitter. Take a listen.
Within the circles that you're in and speaking to different regulators and members of Congress and so forth and government officials, are they aware of how unhappy people are on social media over the SEC, whether it be crypto or stocks? There just seems to be a growing sentiment of distrust and just general not happy with the SEC. Are folks aware of that?
Yes, and I think there's some positive to that, and there's some negative too. I've had many conversations with members of Congress and staff about Twitter engagement, and they notice that when they tweet about crypto, they get a lot of responses, whether it be more about the Ripple case or more about the SEC enforcement actions on Coinbase or others, or just the general posturing from the SEC. That a lot of complaints, a little vitriolic for some of them. So members are saying, what's going on? What is this? And that's where they, have a lot of conversations with us about it. And it is trickling down, at least, especially on the Democrat side. I've talked to a lot of staffers who said, look, we're not fans of the SEC's approach. We don't like the language that's been spewed out from the industry, from more on the Twitter side. But at the same time, we do also have to admit that there is probably something going on here that we don't like. And I think the sign that this is actually trickling down to bipartisan criticism is the Blockchain 8 letter that Representative Emmer led a couple months ago, highlighting the SEC's inquiry into a lot of crypto companies, again, 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats. And that's pretty significant for 4 Democrats to go against their own party and say, look, we have concerns. We have met with the industry. We have heard from folks on social media. There is something going on. So it's pretty rare to have this bipartisan pushback, but it's growing. There's less folks in my conversations who are in the Gary Gensler SEC camp than those who are saying, I'm a little skeptical of this, and not even for more political reasons that he has a Democrat next to his name. It's just more because we've been hearing this from a lot of stakeholders. So
absolutely. Shout out to Ron Hammond for everything he's doing there. But, I have to say, if politicians and congressmen and women are really not happy with the verbiage and the tone coming from retail investors, do your job. How about that for a notion? Maybe pass that along, Ron. Maybe they could actually do their job instead of complaining and every issue being so difficult. They need to slow down and take time. Everybody needs to take time and move through things. I get that. But the reality for me is that they're not taking time. They're stalling. And you're stalling because you're getting lobby money from somewhere to stall. Don't believe that. It's still true. The SEC should be able to go down a list of the top 20 cryptocurrencies and tell us which are and aren't securities. Why not? Why does it choose ambiguity? Isn't it supposed to be, protecting us from these projects that aren't following the law? Tell us. It's exactly right. And take a listen here what Professor J.W. Verrett says in this clip.
Well, the SEC chairman has said that for most exchanges and centralized crypto exchanges and DEXs, I think he's referring to DEXs as well. He says there must be at least one security on your platform. Therefore, you're required to register with my agency. Unfortunately, and what I think is the first thing that's not really fair, can you tell us which ones those are and which ones those aren't? That would be nice. Instead of this sort of game of gotcha. I'm sure I could find one security in the list. Therefore, you're required to register as an exchange. Let's see which ones are and which ones aren't. Tell me something specific. Now, when you ask him for more guidance about what is and is not a security, he says we don't give legal advice. I don't think it's a fair response, honestly, because I think it's not legal advice. I think it's just regulatory clarity. And I think that's the least we can expect from our regulator.
That's exactly right. And it's so well said by Jeremy Hogan and J.W. Verrett. There's no doubt. I mean, at my house, it's cowardice. There is no leadership at the SEC when you can't answer these simple questions. Go down the list of the top 20 cryptocurrencies and tell us which are and aren't securities and why that is. That's not legal advice. That's providing regulatory clarity. That isn't what Gary Gensler is interested in doing because he has so much more to gain by going for a jurisdictional land grab from the SEC over crypto. We know that Ripple joins a new digital dollar initiative and the digital dollar project. It is exciting, and I'm very excited for that. And Chris Giancarlo heading up that project. Remember, that project is really about the interfacing of a private public relationship, right? And not just a direct CBDC, but a digital dollar that would still work within the current two-tier banking system, which I believe is the way it will stay, hopefully. Looking right here, this is Diana Adachi. Shout out to Diana. I had a chance to interview her a year or two ago, and she is, in fact, the former head global lead at Accenture and did the due diligence on Ripple, giving them the green light to the financial industry. Take a listen to this comment in this interview.
6-7 years ago, I was global lead at Accenture, and I was doing the due diligence on Ripple for the firm, and subsequently we ended up investing in Ripple. And one of the projects that I got to work on was with a Canadian bank, and they were looking exactly at this question about, is it feasible to use Ripple versus, using Swift? And what struck me was how, so I was able to actually not get into, the bank's very protective of their information, but just looking at the information, the messaging portion of Swift, and how really at the end of the day, how archaic and how like the amount of inefficiencies around that is pretty big, but it's in the banks, to be frank, and the Swift, as you said, is private, but it's all the banks. They are all part of this.
That's right. The banks own it. And she talks about talk about the complement of how that could work together between SWIFT and what Ripple does. So, look, the point I want to come away with this, and shout out to the person that interviewed Diana in this particular interview as well. But the point I wanted to bring and stick out about this is that the banks are really the owners privately of SWIFT. Collectively, they own and control SWIFT out of Belgium. The reason I'm showing you that is because I want to take you through as a reminder very quickly. We know Ripple has been apart. Craig DeWitt no longer at Ripple, but obviously had been selected to be the vice chair of U.S. Faster Payments Council, right? We also know that Ripple, as recently as just past June, right, was selected to help them survey and gauge the industry perspectives for the use of blockchain and cryptocurrencies in payments. Understanding FedNow is a domestic system, but I encourage you to know that this survey is also for cryptocurrency in payments. It would be naive and short-sighted to think that FedNow is mutually exclusive to the overall use someday of cryptocurrencies and stablecoins and CBDCs. Very short-sighted. Understanding that all these different banks own and control SWIFT. This is top 100 banks, according to Leonidas right here in his most recent list of top 100 banks that are Ripple partners, which means that some of these on this list are going to be a part of SWIFT, if not all of them. And they are with Ripple and RippleNet. Now, what's interesting about that is probably more than 100 this day and age, right? But it doesn't matter. The salient point is here. The banks own and control SWIFT. The banks are the ones that make up RippleNet. Is anyone else with me? Am I alone here? Because I don't think that I am. I think this audience is some of the smartest people I've ever met because I've read a lot of your comments. I'm not trying to give financial advice here, but I am looking at the obvious. And the obvious is screaming to me that RippleNet quite possibly is the new version of SWIFT, because SWIFT is one-dimensional, right? It's like WhatsApp with a fax machine, as Ashish Burla said. And what do we know? There's another greater, deeper tie than just the banks own and control SWIFT, and there's over 100 banks that are on RippleNet. We also know that ISO 20022 is set to go live in November, which is the standardization and uniformity of a messaging payment language. It does not mean that they are going to settle in digital assets. But I take you back to the idea and understanding of where this ultimate goal is. And this ultimate goal is to take us to a place where they can pick and select the industry perspectives for the use of blockchain and cryptocurrencies in payments. No, it does not mean that when this go live that they on the same day it's going to start using digital assets like XRP. That's not what that means. But it is the ultimate goal. And if you remember, I think it's Jevons paradox, right? Jevons paradox, William Stanley Jevons, I should say, who really identified the paradox where you could standardize something and make it more efficient, either through technology or through government policy adoption, and therefore make it more useful as a resource, increasing its consumption. The standardization of the shipping container to the shipping industry. So every crane could grab it, every ship could carry it, every truck could put it on there, every port could house it. They could be stackable. No more damage, no more disappearing stuff, no more error, creating this uniformity to that entire industry. To save money, to cut losses. But what it ended up doing was accelerating the shipping trade industry. The same thing happened with the coal furnace and the steam engine in the Industrial Revolution. They set out to make it burn more efficiently because it was too costly. They needed to save money. What they found out once they figured out how to make it more efficient, they could actually burn more coal by running it 24 hours a day because it became so useful of a resource. With more consumption of it, they were able to create and spur and birth the Industrial Revolution. I believe what we're seeing happen with ISO 2022 and what we're seeing with the adoption and surveys from Ripple on Faster Payments Council, the Digital Dollar Project, the Digital Pound Foundation, the Digital Euro Association, and so on and so on. And yes, by the way, Ripple is on the standard body committee along with Stellar for ISO 20022. They are the only two distributed ledger technology members. I believe this standardization through payment language and network will organize the utility and the liquidity so we can see the Jevons paradox take place as we saw in the shipping industry and in the Industrial Revolution, but for money, value, and payments. And when you think about the current state things are in, when Vladimir Putin is chastising the world, has been driven into a situation by many years of irresponsible macroeconomic policies pursued by the G7 countries. He's not wrong, and it doesn't make him a good guy. But it does bring it home for me. Because for me, this is not just about new payment network or DLT or crypto. This is about creating a new form of money. Through the agreement of everyone bringing their utility and liquidity onto a network, giving the representative asset, digital asset, a very real value. So much more than speculation, ladies and gentlemen. And to me, the deep utility and liquidity has to come from the banks. Before I get out of here, I want to tell you, not your keys, not your crypto. If you click the link underneath the video for all the great products and services I have, most of them have incredible specials and deals that I've been able to put together just for you. I'll catch all of you on the next one. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. Take care.